In this ancient land, where rivers whisper the stories of civilizations past, and the winds carry the voices of sages who shaped the destiny of humanity, we find ourselves standing upon sacred soil. It is the land where Gandhi, with his quiet strength, ignited a revolution of peace, and where Vivekananda, with his blazing vision, awakened the sleeping spirit of a nation. Here, history does not rest in books alone. It breathes in every step, every temple, every chant. And today I am humbled, deeply honored, to walk upon this ground, the land of Gandhi and Vivekananda. The timeless spiritual heritage of India is not confined to the boundaries of religion or rituals. It is an ever-flowing current of wisdom, philosophy, and human values that has shaped civilizations for millennia. From the chants of the Vedas echoing through the forests thousands of years ago to the sermons of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, from the teachings of Mahavira on compassion to the verses of the Bhagavad Gita that continue to guide millions in their daily struggles. This land has been a sanctuary of thought and reflection, where humanity has constantly sought higher meaning. It is here that seekers, mystics, and philosophers engaged in dialogues not about conquest of territories but conquest of the self, where the ultimate aim was not material accumulation but the realization of truth, harmony, and liberation. The idea that the world is one family, encapsulated in the ancient saying Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, emerged from this soil, reminding humanity that despite differences in culture, language, or creed, we are bound together by a shared existence and responsibility. This concept alone has made India a spiritual lighthouse for countless souls across the world who look toward it not just as a nation, but as a timeless teacher of life itself. The spiritual heritage of India is not abstract philosophy alone. It manifests itself in the way people live, worship, and interact with each other. It is seen in the pilgrimages that stretch across the Himalayas, the deserts of Rajasthan, the Ghats of Varanasi, and the temples of the south. Every region tells a different story, yet each reflects the same underlying truth that divinity is not far away, hidden in inaccessible heavens, but present in every grain of sand, every river, every act of kindness. The Upanishadic thinkers declared that the divine spark resides within every human being, and this revolutionary idea has continued to shape the worldview of this civilization for centuries. Unlike many traditions that separate the sacred and the mundane, the Indian ethos brings them together, celebrating divinity in the rhythm of daily life, in the food offered as prayer, in the songs sung at dawn, and in the festivals that blend joy with reverence. This integration of the spiritual with the ordinary is what gives Indian heritage its timelessness. It does not belong to one era, but renews itself in every generation that embraces it. Great leaders like Gandhi and Vivekananda did not invent something new. They drew upon this vast heritage and translated it into action for their times. Gandhi took the principles of truth and non-violence, deeply rooted in the Jain, Buddhist, and Hindu traditions, and transformed them into a weapon more powerful than any sword or gun. It was a heritage made alive in the struggle against injustice, a heritage that showed the world how spiritual strength could overcome brute force. Vivekananda, on the other hand, carried this timeless wisdom to the global stage, declaring that India's spirituality was not confined to rituals, but was a message of strength, fearlessness, and service to humanity. His words in Chicago in 1893 still echo because they were not merely speeches. They were the distilled essence of centuries of spiritual realization, reminding the world that true religion is not about division, but about seeing the same divinity in all beings. Their lives were proof that the spiritual heritage of India is not something locked away in scriptures, but a living force that can inspire action, transformation, and global change. This heritage is not limited to saints and philosophers. It is deeply embedded in the collective consciousness of the people. Farmers singing to the earth before sowing seeds, mothers teaching their children values through stories of gods and heroes, artisans carving deities with devotion, and villagers gathering for communal prayers under the banyan tree. All are living examples of how spirituality is interwoven with existence here. The resilience of the Indian people in the face of countless invasions, colonization, and hardships has been fueled not just by material endurance, but by this spiritual grounding that whispers to them that life is sacred, that truth prevails, that inner strength can overcome any outer storm. It is this that has allowed India to remain not only a civilization, but also an inspiration. Despite the march of time and the challenges of modernity, even in today's world of technology, globalization, and material pursuits, the timeless heritage continues to call out, reminding people across continents that progress without values is hollow, and power without compassion is dangerous. Yoga and meditation, once practiced in the quiet hermitages of sages, are now embraced in every corner of the globe, healing minds, bodies, and souls. The philosophies that emerged here, whether the Buddhist path of mindfulness, the Vedantic idea of self-realization, or the Bhakti movement's call for love and devotion, are guiding millions searching for balance in an age of chaos. India's spiritual heritage transcends time because it addresses the most fundamental questions of existence. Who am I? What is my purpose? How should I live? And how can I contribute to the greater good? These are not questions confined to one era or culture. They are universal, eternal, and it is in this that India's gift to the world lies. Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence as a universal message was not born out of weakness, nor was it a mere strategy for political struggle. It was the flowering of a profound conviction that truth and compassion must guide human action. At a time when the world equated power with domination and victory with force, Gandhi stood as a revolutionary voice reminding humanity that there exists a higher form of strength, the strength of the spirit. And his concept of ahimsa, non-violence, was not limited to refraining from physical harm. It encompassed thoughts, words, and deeds, a total commitment to respect the dignity of every being. Gandhi believed that violence, whether subtle or brutal, ultimately corrodes the soul of both the oppressor and the oppressed, while non-violence elevates and purifies both. This message, though rooted in the spiritual traditions of India, reached far beyond national boundaries, offering a path of hope to all who yearned for justice without hatred and change without destruction. The power of Gandhi's philosophy became evident during the struggle for India's independence, when he transformed masses of ordinary people into agents of peaceful resistance. Instead of picking up arms, they picked up courage. Instead of retaliation, they chose patience. Instead of fear, they embraced faith. The Salt March, the Quit India movement, and countless acts of civil disobedience were not just political protests. They were moral demonstrations of a society guided by conscience rather than rage. Gandhi taught that nonviolence was not passive submission. It was active, courageous defiance of injustice, requiring far greater strength than violence ever could. The ability to face prison, humiliation, and even death without hatred was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. This redefined the meaning of struggle, showing that revolutions need not be drenched in blood, but could instead be illuminated by the light of moral conviction beyond the borders of India. Gandhi's philosophy resonated with global leaders and movements seeking liberation, and Martin Luther King Jr. in America drew deeply from Gandhi's teachings as he led the civil rights movement. demonstrating that non-violent resistance could dismantle centuries of racial oppression. Nelson Mandela, during South Africa's fight against apartheid, acknowledged the inspiration he found in Gandhi's principles, even though circumstances at times forced different strategies. Leaders in Burma, Poland, and other regions where people fought for freedom and equality often cited Gandhi as a source of strength. His message transcended geography and culture because it touched something universal in the human condition: the yearning for dignity, justice, and peace without perpetuating cycles of hatred. Gandhi's life became a reminder that the path of compassion is not naive idealism, but practical wisdom that can reshape societies. What makes Gandhi's nonviolence universal is that it speaks to the very heart of human relationships. It is not limited to grand political struggles. It applies equally to the conflicts within families, communities, and nations. Gandhi taught that every act of anger, every harsh word, every prejudice is a form of violence that distances us from truth. To embrace nonviolence is to transform ourselves, to see others not as enemies but as fellow beings deserving of respect and empathy. This transformation begins within and radiates outward, shaping not only personal lives but also collective destinies. In this sense, Gandhi's philosophy was both deeply personal and profoundly global, a call for individuals to cultivate peace within so that societies could reflect peace without. He believed that if one person could truly embody non-violence, it would influence thousands. And if a community could live by it, it could transform the world in today's world, where conflicts still rage, where violence continues to claim innocent lives, and where divisions are amplified by politics, religion, and ideology. Gandhi's message feels more urgent than ever. Terrorism, war, and intolerance remind us daily of the destructive power of hatred. Yet Gandhi's vision offers an alternative path, a reminder that humanity need not be trapped in cycles of revenge. The global adoption of non-violent methods in protests, environmental movements, and human rights campaigns shows that his philosophy still breathes in the struggles of the present. Climate activists sitting peacefully in protest, citizens demanding rights without raising weapons, voices calling for equality without descending into hatred. All are echoes of Gandhi's timeless teaching. His philosophy endures not because it is easy, but because it is necessary for the survival of a just and humane world, even in personal spheres. Gandhi's message invites us to examine how we treat each other, choosing patience over anger, dialogue over conflict, forgiveness over resentment. These are small acts of non-violence that ripple outward, creating more compassionate families, workplaces, and communities. Gandhi's universal message lies in the idea that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice pursued through love and truth. His insistence on satyagraha, the force of truth, teaches us that real power is not domination, but the ability to stand unwaveringly for what is right without hatred in the heart. This is the moral revolution Gandhi gave the world, a revolution that continues to inspire those who believe that lasting change is born not of violence, but of the courage to love, even in the face of oppression. Vivekananda's vision of youth empowerment and strength was not simply a call to action for a generation. It was a timeless declaration that the future of any nation rests in the vitality, courage, and moral clarity of its young people. When he stood on the global stage in Chicago in 1893 and addressed the world with his thunderous words, he was not only representing the spiritual heritage of India, he was igniting a spark in the hearts of millions of young minds across the world. And he believed with unshakable certainty that youth are the engines of transformation, not passive inheritors of tradition, but dynamic creators of destiny. To him, weakness was the greatest sin, for weakness breeds fear, doubt, and dependency, whereas strength in character, mind, and spirit breeds innovation, courage, and leadership. His message was not one of mere inspiration. It was a blueprint for awakening the dormant power within every young person so they could rise to the challenges of their time with confidence and clarity. Vivekananda's vision was rooted in the conviction that education must go beyond books and have examinations. It must cultivate character, discipline, and a spirit of service. He often said that true education is the manifestation of the perfection already present in man, reminding us that every individual carries within them infinite potential waiting to be realized. For him, education that produced timid clerks or mere job seekers was a betrayal of the spirit, while education that instilled fearlessness, self-reliance, and integrity was the foundation of true nation building. He wanted the youth to embody strength not only in muscles but in moral conviction, not only in intellect but in compassion, not only in ambition but in responsibility. In his eyes, a nation's greatness did not depend on its wealth or armies, but on the strength of its young people, their ability to think freely, act courageously, and live with unwavering faith in themselves and their country. Central to Vivekananda's message was the call to fearlessness. He would often tell young people to banish weakness and embrace the divine strength within. He declared that the essence of religion and philosophy is not about fear of punishment or blind obedience, but about realizing the strength of the soul and expressing it through action. In a society often weighed down by centuries of colonial domination, social divisions, and cultural stagnation, his call was like a trumpet awakening the sleeping lion of self-confidence. He urged the youth to rise above the shackles of self-doubt and dependency, to believe that they were heirs to a magnificent heritage and custodians of a greater future. His words inspired countless young people to dedicate themselves not to personal gain, but to the service of their nation, to uplift the poor, to educate the masses, to break down barriers of caste and prejudice, and to infuse society with the vitality of unity and progress. Vivekananda's vision of youth empowerment was not confined to the political or social sphere. It was deeply spiritual. He believed that true strength comes from realizing one's oneness with the universe, from understanding that the same divinity resides in all beings. For him, empowerment was not about domination, but about service, and not about selfish ambition, but about selfless contribution. He wanted the youth to embrace the spirit of karma yoga, working tirelessly without attachment to rewards, and bhakti, devotion to the divine spark in all. In this synthesis of spirituality and action lay his unique approach, where young people were not asked to renounce the world, but to engage with it fearlessly, bringing into it the light of their strength and the purity of their vision. In markets and villages, in festivals and marriages, in food and art, cultures intermingle and enrich one another. A dish in one state carries influences from another. Music in the north borrows instruments from the south, and festivals often see participation across faiths. Diwali is celebrated not only by Hindus but by Sikhs, Jains, and Buddhists in different forms. Eid is shared with neighbors irrespective of religion. Christmas finds resonance beyond Christian communities. This everyday inclusiveness reflects a deeper understanding that beneath all differences there is a shared humanity. In villages where communities gather under the same banyan tree, and in cities where modern life blends traditions from across the land, the essence of unity thrives in ways that go beyond mere tolerance. It becomes acceptance and celebration. India's freedom movement itself was a living demonstration of this unity in diversity. Leaders from different religions, regions, and backgrounds came together under a common vision of independence, setting aside personal and ideological differences for the larger cause of national awakening. Gandhi's mass movements drew people across castes and communities, while Nehru spoke of India's destiny as a pluralistic democracy where every culture and religion would find a home. The Constitution of India later enshrined this spirit, declaring the nation to be secular, democratic, and inclusive, guaranteeing equal rights and protections to all its citizens regardless of their identity. This was not merely a political choice, but a reflection of centuries of cultural practice, an acknowledgement that the survival and progress of such a diverse land depended on unity grounded in mutual respect. What makes this unity remarkable is that it has endured despite immense challenges. The country has faced invasions, colonization, communal tensions, and modern political conflicts. Yet the central idea of coexistence has not been extinguished. Time and again, when divisions threatened to tear the fabric apart, ordinary people reminded the world that their shared bonds were stronger than their differences. Communities have rebuilt after riots, neighbors have protected one another during crises, and festivals continue to be moments where barriers dissolve. This resilience demonstrates that unity in diversity is not a fragile ideal, but a deeply ingrained cultural value that sustains itself across centuries. It is this very quality that allows India to be not just a nation, but a civilization that embraces multiplicity without losing cohesion in a global context, where many nations struggle with polarization, identity politics, and cultural clashes. The example of India as a beacon of unity and diversity holds immense relevance. The world today faces rising intolerance, xenophobia, and divisions that threaten peace and cooperation, yet India's model demonstrates that it is possible to uphold distinct identities without descending into fragmentation. The coexistence of so many languages, faiths, and traditions within one national framework is a lesson in balance, showing that diversity need not lead to conflict if it is coupled with respect, inclusivity, and shared purpose. The land teaches that true unity is not uniformity but harmony, not erasure of differences but their orchestration into a larger symphony. This beacon shines not only for its people, but for the world at large, inspiring thinkers, leaders, and societies to reconsider how they approach diversity. It stands as a reminder that peace is not achieved by eliminating what is different, but by embracing it as part of a greater whole. The land of Gandhi and Vivekananda symbolizes this truth powerfully, for Gandhi's nonviolence was rooted in respect for every human being, while Vivekananda's vision of spirituality embraced all religions as different paths leading to the same truth. Together, their legacies underscore that unity in diversity is not just a cultural reality but a spiritual necessity, an ideal that can guide humanity toward a more just, compassionate, and peaceful existence. India's role in shaping global peace and harmony has been one of the most profound, yet often understated contributions in human history. For it is not a role born out of conquest or dominance, but one grounded in philosophy, spirituality, and moral leadership. From the earliest times, this land has carried within its ethos the conviction that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, compassion, and balance in human relationships. The ancient principle of ahimsa, the practice of nonviolence, emerged as a guiding light here, long before it became part of global discourse. The Upanishads spoke of harmony between the individual and the cosmos, The Buddha preached compassion as the highest virtue, and Jainism emphasized non-harm as the foundation of life. This deep-rooted heritage created a culture where the pursuit of peace was not a passive state, but an active responsibility, and where the harmony of society was seen as an extension of the harmony within the self. India's influence on global peace became most visible through the life and work of Mahatma Gandhi, whose nonviolent struggle against colonial rule transformed not only his nation, but also the conscience of the world. By proving that freedom could be won without bloodshed, Gandhi introduced a new paradigm of conflict resolution, where moral force triumphed over brute force. His idea of satyagraha, the insistence on truth, was not limited to India's struggle for independence, but became a universal method adopted by civil rights leaders across continents. Martin Luther King Jr. drew inspiration from Gandhi in the fight against racial segregation, while Nelson Mandela acknowledged his philosophy during South Africa's resistance to apartheid. Gandhi's life became a symbol that true peace is not achieved through domination but through understanding, patience, and the courage to forgive. In this way, India offered the world not just a political model, but a moral compass for resolving human conflicts beyond individuals. India's role in shaping global harmony has also been expressed through its philosophy of inclusivity and coexistence. The ancient idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the world is one family, continues to guide the nation's worldview. It reflects a recognition that humanity shares a common destiny and that divisions of race, religion, or nationality are secondary to the shared bond of existence. This vision has influenced global dialogues on peace, reminding nations that cooperation and compassion are essential for survival in an interconnected world. At international platforms, India has consistently advocated for disarmament, dialogue, and mutual respect among nations, choosing the path of moral leadership rather than aggression. Its participation in peacekeeping missions under the United Nations further reflects a commitment to fostering stability in regions torn by war, not for expansion of power, but for the service of humanity. India's cultural contributions have also been a significant force for global harmony. The spread of Buddhism across Asia carried messages of compassion and mindfulness that continue to influence societies from Japan to Thailand. Yoga and meditation, once confined to the hermitages of sages, have become global practices promoting mental peace, physical well-being, and spiritual balance. In a world increasingly burdened by stress, conflict, and alienation, these practices serve as bridges between cultures, transcending boundaries of nationality and religion. Indian art, music, and literature have similarly carried forward the message of unity, offering symbols of harmony and universality. Through cultural exchange, India has demonstrated that peace is not only a political or philosophical concept, but also a lived experience, nurtured through shared expressions of beauty and meaning in modern times. As the world grapples with issues such as terrorism, climate change, and inequality, India's role as a voice of peace has grown more relevant. Its emphasis on sustainable development, drawn from ancient traditions that viewed nature as sacred, offers lessons on living in balance with the environment. In international forums, India has often positioned itself as a mediator, calling for dialogue over conflict and cooperation over competition. By advocating for a multipolar world where all nations, large or small, have a voice, it extends its philosophy of inclusivity to the global stage. Its initiatives in promoting renewable energy, fostering South-South cooperation, and contributing to humanitarian aid, all reflect a vision where progress is not achieved at the expense of others, but in partnership with them. This approach echoes the timeless wisdom that harmony must extend beyond borders to truly secure peace. What makes India's role unique is that it does not separate peace from justice, nor harmony from dignity. It understands that true peace cannot be sustained where inequality, exploitation, or oppression exists. This conviction has guided its leaders in emphasizing the importance of human rights, equality, and development as essential components of global stability. India's democratic framework itself is an experiment in harmony, where 1 billion people of different faiths, languages, and traditions coexist within one nation, showing the world that diversity need not lead to division. This living model reinforces its global message that peace is possible, not by erasing differences, but by embracing them within a framework of mutual respect. By embodying this balance internally, India strengthens its voice externally, offering a model of coexistence for nations fractured by division in every era. India has extended to the world a message that peace and harmony are not abstract ideals but practical necessities for human survival and growth. From the teachings of its sages to the struggles of its freedom fighters, from the quiet spread of yoga to its active participation in global diplomacy, it has consistently demonstrated that humanity's future depends on cultivating compassion, respect, and unity. This role is not incidental but central to its identity, born of a civilization that has always sought not conquest but connection, not domination but dialogue, not power for its own sake but strength in service of the greater good. Lessons of resilience and moral courage from Indian leaders form one of the richest legacies that continues to inspire people across the world. Throughout history, India has produced figures whose strength lay not in physical dominance or material wealth, but in their ability to remain steadfast in the face of adversity, guided by values that transcended personal gain. These leaders demonstrated that resilience is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to rise through it. And moral courage is not the avoidance of conflict, but the determination to stand for truth, even when the price is high. Their lives serve as a living testament to the idea that greatness is not measured by victory alone, but by the integrity with which one confronts challenges. And it is this example that has made India a cradle of leaders who continue to influence humanity. Mahatma Gandhi is perhaps the most powerful embodiment of this lesson. At a time when violence seemed the only means of resistance against a mighty empire, Gandhi showed that moral courage could create a revolution without shedding blood. His resilience was tested through countless imprisonments, insults, and hardships, yet he never wavered from his commitment to truth and non-violence. To march peacefully into the batons of colonial police, to refuse to retaliate even when provoked, to endure hunger strikes in the pursuit of justice, these were acts that required more courage than any weapon could provide. Gandhi's strength was not physical, but spiritual, his resilience rooted in the conviction that truth, if pursued with purity of heart, would ultimately prevail. This moral courage became the foundation not only of India's freedom, but also of global movements for justice that drew inspiration from his example. Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, also embodied resilience during the long years of struggle against colonialism and in the turbulent years of building a new nation. Imprisoned for nearly a decade in total, Nehru used that time not to despair, but to write, reflect, and deepen his vision for a free India. When independence finally came, He faced the monumental task of leading a divided land scarred by partition, yet he had the moral courage to uphold the values of democracy, secularism, and inclusivity. He resisted the temptation to impose authoritarian control and instead trusted the people of India to build a pluralistic nation. His resilience lay in his ability to dream of a modern, united India, despite the fractures of history, and his courage was in holding fast to principles of freedom and equality, even when the challenges seemed overwhelming. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar stands as another towering example of resilience and moral courage. Born into a marginalized community and subjected to discrimination at every step, Ambedkar refused to be crushed by the weight of social prejudice. Instead, he rose through education and determination to become one of the principal architects of India's constitution. His resilience was forged in a life of struggle, his moral courage displayed in his relentless fight against caste oppression. He stood up not only for his own rights, but for the dignity of all marginalized communities, challenging entrenched systems with intellectual brilliance and unyielding conviction. Ambedkar taught that resilience is the power to transform suffering into strength, and moral courage is the refusal to accept injustice, even when it is deeply rooted in tradition. His life is a lesson that true leadership means creating systems of equality where every individual can live with dignity. Leaders like Subhash Chandra Bose remind us that resilience can also take the form of unrelenting determination in the pursuit of freedom. Bose chose a path different from Gandhi's, yet his moral courage was evident in his willingness to sacrifice everything for the liberation of his country. Exiled, hunted, and often misunderstood, he displayed resilience by building an army out of scattered resources and igniting the flame of resistance against colonial power. His courage was not only in battle, but in his refusal to compromise with oppression, his determination to secure dignity for his nation at any cost. Bose's legacy shows that resilience is the refusal to yield to despair, and moral courage is the readiness to stake one's life for the truth one believes in. The lessons extend beyond political leaders to spiritual figures like Swami Vivekananda, who carried India's message of strength and unity to the global stage. His resilience was evident in overcoming personal struggles of poverty and despair, transforming them into a vision that uplifted an entire generation. His moral courage was in proclaiming to the world that India was not a land of weakness, but of immense spiritual strength, reminding the youth to arise, awake, and recognize their inner power. In his words and actions, he embodied the idea that true resilience is rooted in self-belief, and true courage lies in serving humanity selflessly. His legacy continues to inspire young people to face challenges with confidence and to dedicate their strength to the welfare of society. These lessons of resilience and moral courage are not confined to history. They continue to resonate in contemporary times. Every struggle against injustice, every movement for equality, every voice that rises in defense of truth carries forward this legacy. The leaders of India have shown that adversity need not define destiny, and that the strength of character can overcome even the harshest trials. They remind us that resilience is not about avoiding pain, but about finding meaning in it. And moral courage is not about avoiding conflict, but about standing for what is right, even when one stands alone. Through their examples, India has offered the world a powerful reminder that leadership is not about privilege or power, but about the willingness to endure suffering for the sake of truth, and to act with integrity, even when the world resists. Inspiration drawn from India's culture and traditions flows far beyond its borders, shaping not only the identity of its people, but also offering timeless lessons to the world. This land is not defined by one tradition or one cultural thread, but by an intricate tapestry woven from thousands of years of philosophy, art, spirituality, music, literature, and social practices. From the ancient Vedas to the folk songs sung in villages, from the epics of the Mahabharata and Ramayana to the local festivals that mark the cycles of the seasons, India's culture is a living embodiment of continuity and renewal. It is not static but dynamic, absorbing influences across centuries yet retaining its essence, a testament to its resilience and adaptability. For anyone who encounters it, there is inspiration in its ability to honor the past while constantly reinventing itself for the present and future. The depth of India's traditions lies in their ability to connect the mundane with the sacred. Daily life is infused with rituals that remind individuals of a higher purpose, whether it is the offering of a lamp at dawn, the chanting of a mantra, or the sharing of food as an act of devotion. These acts may seem small, yet they carry profound meaning, teaching humility, gratitude, and reverence for life. In a world often consumed by haste and material pursuit, such practices inspire reflection and mindfulness, encouraging individuals to pause and recognize the divine in the ordinary. This integration of spirituality into daily living offers a model of balance that continues to inspire people across cultures who search for harmony in a fragmented age. Festivals in India are another powerful source of inspiration, each carrying unique traditions while reflecting universal values. Diwali, the festival of lights, symbolizes the triumph of good over evil and knowledge over ignorance, inspiring people to bring light into their own lives and communities. Holi, with its vibrant colors, dissolves barriers of caste, creed, and social status, reminding all that joy and unity are possible when differences are set aside. Eid, Christmas, Baisakhi, Pongal, and countless regional celebrations bring communities together, embodying the spirit of inclusivity and togetherness. These festivals inspire not only joy, but also a sense of shared humanity, where cultural diversity becomes a reason for celebration rather than division. The inspiration here lies in how traditions can unify people across boundaries, creating bonds of compassion and fellowship. India's rich tradition of storytelling, preserved in its epics, folk tales, and classical literature, continues to inspire generations. And the Mahabharata and Ramayana are not merely stories of gods and heroes. They are profound explorations of human dilemmas, morality, duty, and the complexity of life. The Panchatantra fables carry timeless lessons of wisdom and strategy, while the poetry of Kalidasa, Kabir, Mirabai, and Tagore reflects the beauty of devotion, love, and the human spirit. These narratives remind us that culture is not only entertainment, but a reservoir of values, offering guidance through the ages. For the modern world, grappling with ethical dilemmas and uncertainties, these traditions provide inspiration by showing that the struggles of humanity are universal and timeless, and that answers often lie in wisdom passed down through generations. Art, music, and dance in India are also deeply rooted in tradition, yet serve as sources of constant renewal and inspiration. Classical forms like Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, and Kathakali embody devotion, storytelling, and discipline, while musical traditions such as Hindustani and Carnatic music transport listeners into realms of reflection and transcendence. Folk dances and songs tied to harvests, rituals, and community gatherings reflect the vibrancy of everyday life and the resilience of ordinary people. These art forms inspire not only by their beauty, but by their connection to the deeper rhythms of life, reminding the world that creativity and spirituality can merge seamlessly. They stand as proof that tradition is not a burden of the past, but a fountain of inspiration that renews itself with every performance and every generation. The cultural philosophy of India has also been a source of inspiration to thinkers and seekers worldwide. Yoga and meditation, once confined to hermitages, have now become global practices that transform lives by fostering balance, health, and inner peace. Philosophical traditions like Vedanta and Buddhism have shaped discourses on consciousness, ethics, and mindfulness in many parts of the world. The concept of Dharma, the idea of living in accordance with truth and duty, inspires individuals to act responsibly and align their lives with higher principles. The cultural emphasis on tolerance and acceptance of multiple truths has influenced not just spiritual seekers, but also leaders and reformers who found in India's traditions a vision for coexistence. This inspiration continues to guide people searching for meaning beyond material success, reminding them of the importance of inner strength and universal compassion. India's traditions also inspire through their adaptability. Despite centuries of change, foreign invasions, colonization, globalization, the essence of Indian culture has survived and thrived, absorbing influences without losing its identity. This adaptability teaches the lesson that traditions need not resist change to remain relevant. They can evolve and yet preserve their core values. The coexistence of modern science and ancient spirituality, of global practices and local customs, demonstrates that tradition and progress can walk hand in hand. For societies struggling to balance heritage with modernity, India's culture offers an inspiring example of resilience and creativity, showing that identity can be preserved not by resisting change, but by harmonizing with it ultimately. The inspiration drawn from India's culture and traditions lies in their universal appeal. They remind the world that diversity is a source of strength, that spirituality can guide daily life, that art can express the sacred, and that wisdom passed through generations can illuminate modern challenges. India's cultural heritage continues to inspire leaders, artists, thinkers, and ordinary people across continents, offering not just practices to adopt, but values to live by. In its music, stories, festivals, philosophies, and everyday rituals, India offers a vision of life where beauty and truth, individuality and unity, the material and the spiritual coexist in harmony, inspiring humanity to seek higher ideals without abandoning the richness of the human experience.